All right, everybody, welcome in. We're diving deep today, get this, into Honeywell.
Honeywell.
You know, the company, they've been around forever. Like, they just kind of quietly power our lives. You know what I mean?
They do, behind the scenes.
But
Yeah.
they are anything but quiet right now in the financial world.
No, not at all.
Their stock price has just been skyrocketing. I mean, we're talking record highs here, people.
Mm-hmm.
Over $243 a share recently. So that begs the question.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, what's driving this?
What's fueling this rocket ride, right?
That's a good question.
So let's unpack it. Let's take a deep dive, as we like to do here. What do you think?
Yeah, let's dive in. I think what's really interesting here is, the stock price is almost like, the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's what we see, but underneath there's all this action happening.
Exactly.
And that's what we're going to look at today, all the forces that are kind of driving this surge.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So where do we begin? I mean, what's the first layer, so to speak, that we need to peel back here?
Well, I think you can't talk about, Honeywell's stock performance recently without talking about Elliott Management.
Oh, yeah. Elliott Management.
This is, a major investment firm, and they're known for this thing called activist approach.
Activist approach, okay.
Yeah, so they buy up a lot, like a significant chunk of a company,
Mm-hmm.
and then they try to make changes. They actively push for these changes that they think will unlock value, they say.
Okay. So it's kind of like if you had a friend and they suddenly bought a huge part of your house
That's a good way to put it.
and then started saying hey, I think you need to repaint and maybe add a room onto the back.
Exactly.
Maybe a little intrusive, but also maybe there's some good ideas there.
Maybe they're right. Yeah.
So how big are we talking here? How much of a stake did Elliott Management buy up?
Well, they've invested over $5 billion in Honeywell.
$5 billion.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're not messing around.
No, they're not messing around. That's a clear sign. They see potential there, but they're not afraid to shake things up a little bit.
I mean, $5 billion. They must be pretty confident in their strategy here. So what exactly are they saying Honeywell should do? What are their big ideas?
Well, their main argument is that Honeywell, it's actually more valuable in pieces than as a whole.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So they're pushing for Honeywell to split into two separate companies.
Two separate companies.
Yeah. One focused on aerospace and then the other one on automation. And their thinking is that these two businesses, while they're both, successful, they might actually be holding each other back.
Okay. So it's I don't know, Honeywell is this delicious cake, right?
Yeah.
But Elliott Management's coming in and they're like, you know what? This would be way better as two cupcakes.
Exactly.
Each with their own frosting,
Their own sprinkles.
Yeah, sprinkles the whole thing.
Yeah. And I think that they believe that the separation will allow each of those companies to kind of focus on their core strengths, be a little bit more agile, respond to market changes, and ultimately attract a higher valuation. People will see them as more valuable as separate companies.
Gotcha. Okay. So, I mean, this is all very interesting, but for someone who, maybe owns Honeywell stock or is thinking about buying some, the big question is, what does this all mean for their investment?
Yeah.
Right? Is it actually going to boost the share price like Elliott Management is saying?
I mean, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And I think, to be honest, the answer is not so clear-cut. I mean, these activist investors like Elliott, they've got a mixed track record.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Sometimes, their intervention leads to real improvements, higher share prices, but sometimes it can create, a lot of turmoil, a lot of uncertainty.
Okay, so it's kind of a gamble.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a gamble.
High-stakes gamble.
So what are the experts saying? I mean, are they siding with Elliott Management or with, Honeywell's current management?
Well, it's a mixed bag.
Okay.
The analyst community is kind of divided on this. You've got some, like Goldman Sachs, they're pretty bullish on Honeywell's future.
Okay.
Even with all this going on, they're maintaining a buy rating on the stock. They believe Honeywell has a strong track record and they can kind of thrive even without a split.
Okay, so they're kind of like, Honeywell's got this.
Yeah.
But not everyone's so optimistic, right?
Right. You've got others like Wolfe Research. They've actually downgraded Honeywell recently.
Oh, wow.
Taking a more cautious approach. They're concerned about the uncertainty surrounding all of this, Elliott's involvement.
Right.
And the potential disruptions that a split could cause.
Yeah. What's interesting to me about all this?
What's that?
Is that Honeywell isn't just sitting around, waiting to see what Elliott Management's going to do.
Right. they're making some pretty bold moves of their own.
That's true.
Like, they've been on this acquisition spree.
They have.
Spending over, get this, $9 billion this year alone, buying up all kinds of companies in different sectors.
Wow, yeah.
And on top of that, they're spinning off their advanced materials division.
Yeah.
So while Elliott Management's saying, break up, Honeywell's over there like, we're expanding, we're diversifying.
They are.
It's like they're playing chess,
yeah,
you know?
It is.
Each one trying to outmaneuver the other.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's fascinating. Right.
It is. I mean, it's hard to know for sure if all of these acquisitions and the spinoff are like a direct response to Elliott's pressure.
Right.
Or if this was already, part of their long-term strategy.
Right.
But what is clear is that Honeywell is like actively reshaping itself.
They are.
And that just adds another layer of complexity, for investors to think about.
So to recap, right, we've got this major investor, Elliott Management, coming in, shaking things up.
Yeah.
We've got Honeywell making these power moves of their own, and then we've got analysts on all sides saying, I don't know, could be good, could be bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like this Honeywell saga is far from over.
It's not over. And I think, the takeaway here, the big one, is that Honeywell's recent stock surge, it's not just about, what people are feeling in the market or some short-term trend. There are major changes happening inside the company.
Yeah.
Driven by both internal and external forces,
Yeah.
And how these play out is really going to determine whether this stock price, is actually justified or if it's just a temporary bubble.
This whole deep dive has just been really thought-provoking.
Good.
I mean, it sounds like Honeywell's at a crossroads. And like, whatever decisions get made in the next few months could have a huge impact on their future, on the value of their stock. So for our listeners out there who might be wondering, what to do with their Honeywell investments, what would you say? What's your, parting advice?
I think the best advice is just to stay informed, Keep an eye on what's happening in the news, do your own research, really try to understand, the thinking behind Elliott's proposals and what Honeywell is doing in response.
Yeah.
Because this is a really, dynamic situation.
Right.
Big potential rewards, but also some significant risks,
Absolutely. Well, hey, thanks for taking us on this deep dive into Honeywell. I think it's a good reminder that even with a company that seems, as solid as a rock, there's always a lot going on beneath the surface.
Always, yeah. There's always more to the story.
Always more to the story. All right, folks, that's our deep dive for today. We'll catch you next time.